Hi Freelancer, welcome to today's episode of the Freelance Blueprint. I'm your host Lizzie, a freelance UX designer and digital nomad. Today we're joined by Alejo, an illustrator who specializes in sketchnotes. The first time I came across his work was because of Christo when he shared a sketchnote Alejo made of one of his lessons. That was also the first time I came across sketchnotes in general, and I've enjoyed following Alejo ever since. So I'm very excited to talk about his journey today. A little caveat, the Freelance Blueprint is a podcast for freelancers by freelancers. I'm interviewing other freelancers from all over the world with the mission to give you insights and learnings from people with different backgrounds and mindsets, so you can make the best decisions for your own freelance career. And normally each episode is supposed to be about the guest of the podcast, but today's episode was probably more like an homage for Christo and the knowledge he so generously shares with other creators and freelancers, so we can all be more successful. All right, so let's dive in. Hi Alejo, where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from Atlanta, Georgia.
Nice. And if I wouldn't know anything about you, but I would meet your kid, how would they describe you to me?
Oh, that's a cool question. He would say that I am fun, that I cook. I don't know if he would describe how good I cook because he's a picky eater sometimes. He would say that I work a lot, but he would also say that I'm fun to be around.
So you're doing illustrations, you're doing sketch notes, you do social media, you're a dad, you have a newsletter, and you travel for work to conferences. How do you manage all of this, and how do you maintain an income while also having all of these things to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's funny because you started with like, what would your son say about you? And like one of the things that he definitely says like that I work too much. And I don't work that much, but I work from home a lot. And just the fact that he is at home and he's like, I want to play with you right now. It's like there's times when I'm working. I know that's why he will say like he works too much because he's not playing with me at this point. But anyway, that is to say like I actually try to work less than 30 hours a week, and I like measure my time to make sure that I'm doing that. And part of the reason why I can do that is that I have certain kinds of work that is recurrent that thankfully kind of like pays the bills, and then with new work that comes, I become very efficient with my work. The nature of my work allows me to do that, and the value that it brings is also so good that I have leveraged higher prices. So I don't need that many gigs a month to be stable and to have my bases covered. That is a good thing, at this point in my life. Yeah, if I had gigs every week, and have multiple gigs every week, I'll be making, I don't know, like $200,000, $300,000 a year. That'd be fantastic, right? But I wouldn't have time to be with my family, and that wouldn't be that fantastic. So there's some compromise that I have to give, and I'm happy to do it, and just for the sake of being around more. I don't travel like more than twice a month unless it's a tight month and I have to, and there just happens to be an event. But there are many events that are remote, and there's many of my work that is also like not necessarily live sketch notes, but people who would send me text like, a minute or a summary of something, and then I'll translate that visually. So those things allow me to be at home and not travel that much, which is a great thing. The newsletter thing, it's a weekly thing. And right now, if you want to subscribe, it's called Fresh Ideas, and you can find it on my Instagram. If you click on the little link, there's a link there that says subscribe to my newsletter. And I send weekly tips for creative professionals to get better at business, things about mindset, and stories. I'm trying to involve more storytelling into what I do instead of just telling you, hey, these are the 4 things that you should do to improve your business. But like telling a story of my life or a story that I've learned and attach that to a lesson, because I believe in the power of storytelling. And that's pretty much what I'm doing right now. Part of the things of like social media, I have so much content that I just kind of like schedule it to just go there. The hardest part is to write the captions, because I don't want to just like post something and be like, here's what I did. Like the other day I was exploring Cara, like the new app that is like that a lot of illustrators are moving from Instagram to there. I was like, what's the deal about it? And I was like, well, there's a lot of good art, but there's just people kind of like saying, I did this thing, and this is an exercise that I did. It's like, so what? Like, it's like, it's cool, but so what? Like, what is the value that you're giving me besides that? And I always like to share something and then share an idea in the caption that is relevant to that. So that's what takes me a little bit more time. But part of that, and part of the reasons of my newsletter, is because I eventually, in the podcast interviews that I have like this, is because I eventually would love to be a speaker at conferences and, share all these things about my story, tips that I've learned with other, more audiences. So that's part of my way of training myself in public speaking and developing my ideas, developing something that is consistent that can teach other people and be useful. So if you follow my path there, then maybe one day you'll see me at a conference and be like, yeah, I remember with that guy was just writing his newsletters. That's so cool.
I'd love to. Like, if you're ever at the
Yeah.
conference, I mean, I don't know. I assume it will be more American side of the world, but I would love to come. So,
I'm open because if it's in Europe or anything like that, I bring my family. Like in a
yes.
second, I'll do it. Yeah, it's part of the contract. They have to come with me.
So, you're an illustrator. I assume most people know what that is, but you specifically do sketch notes. So, for anyone who doesn't really know what that means, can you explain it a little bit?
Yeah, happy to. So sketch notes is one term that encompass a lot of other words like graphic recording, scribing, live illustration, visual notes. All of that is essentially a way of capturing notes in real time that is visual. So for conferences or meetings, when people are discussing big ideas, what a sketchnoter like me or a graphic recorder does is that they attend in real time and write and draw in real time those ideas in a way that is compelling, that is fun, that is engaging, and that people actually look forward to seeing instead of just like a minute, of just text, 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 text. Something that adds storytelling to it and that adds layers of emotion and meaning so that it makes it more memorable.
Yeah, I also think people are generally more visual than, like, when you see a text, you don't really remember it. And even if you would remember something based off text, it's often the story, because if you read a good book, for example, you can visualize what the story is or what the people in the book look like. How did you get into the whole sketch note scene?
Yeah, that was, I blame it on Instagram, to be honest. Well, as an illustrator, I've always drawn my whole life. I've always loved it because I come from a family that was very prone to arts. I have a lot of aunts and uncles that are artistically inclined. My dad was a classic guitarist, so there was always an encouragement towards the arts. And when I went to college, I freaked out a little bit because in Costa Rica, the market for the arts is very small, and I didn't want to be a starving artist. So I went to biology. And then I realized that calculus and chemistry didn't go along with me very well, even though I appreciate them and I'm curious about them. And I ended up moving to graphic design because it was the closest to drawing that I could get without being like an artist, like everybody needs a logo, everybody needs branding. And that was my perception there. But then working on graphic design, I realized, I don't kind of dig it. Like I understand it, I appreciate it, but it's not my cup of tea. And what I love to do is drawing. So I decided to get out of the country, go and do a master's degree in the United States, and that was in illustration. And then I was like, okay, this is my pot of land. I'm going to make a career drawing pictures for books and newspapers. And well, after I graduated and I was working out, how to do all that stuff, one of those days that you have just too much time on your hands, I was flipping out on my phone, going on Instagram rabbit holes, and I found somebody who did graphic recording. I was like, well, this is interesting. Somebody is being paid to draw, to travel, to attend conferences, All those three things I like. So how can I learn that, and how do I do that? And I've been taking notes and adding drawings to my notes my whole life, like when I got bored, or I had thoughts, and doing journaling and all that stuff. So I was like, this is something that I think I could do, and I could do well if I get the training. And yeah, so that's how it started. That was 2017. In 2018, I applied for a company called the Sketch Effect, and they trained me, and that's where my journey like really took off. And I decided to not look back on graphic design or illustration as like editorial illustration, but just like focus completely on sketch notes. And yeah, it's been wonderful ever since.
Nice. I guess nowadays with social media, there are so many jobs that we don't even know exist. Like, for example, you just coming across this video on Instagram, it's like, oh, someone can get paid for all the things that I'm good at and enjoy doing. So I could do the same. And there are so many things that will change as well, especially now with AI. The jobs we have today won't exist in a couple of years or maybe even months. And I mean, I remember when I was a kid and I found out that there are people who get paid to review hotels. They go there to stay in hotels, taste the food, judge the service. So, how did you then, when you found that first job, how did you feel once you achieved that?
Well, at the beginning, it was super exciting because I had found out something that I was good at, and that I had put myself into intentionally without knowing what would happen. Part of me felt excited. The other part of me had, it was not imposter syndrome, it was a sort of guilt, because I had spending all this time and money, going to college for a specific kind of illustration, right? And wrap myself in the, or my head into the idea that I was going to be a certain kind of artist that took his time doing illustration. Like, I used to spend days or weeks doing one illustration because I would do multiple compositions and all that. And I felt like that's a lot of training, that's a lot of effort, that's a lot of time, a lot of all nighters. And now I was doing doodles, right? And sketch notes are not doodles, are more than that. And there's a lot of different skills that you need to have in order to do it effectively. But part of me felt guilt because I was just deviating. It's like, what is people from college going to say? Turns out they actually are proud because I actually managed to go to my college earlier this year. They hired me to
Wow.
to do this at a meeting that they have, and they were all fascinated by it. My old illustration professors were like, this is awesome, like this is so cool, I could never do those things. It's like these people that I looked up to, and gave me all this perspective of the industry, and now I'm like doing this new thing. So that was actually a nice full circle to realize that I took the right decision on focusing on this aspect. And since then, it's just been really cool. I've learned a lot, because it's not only the skill that you learn, but also the spaces that you have access to now because of that. Many artists, they just work from home, right? Like, they send brief, you have the information, you do the thing, you send it, and that's it. But in my line of work, I have to go where the client is, whether it's like virtual, but many times it's like on site. And I get to hear conversations that other people don't have access to, much less artists, right? People who are changing the world in their different spheres of influence. And one of the things that has been more reassuring is that I have perceived from all these hundreds of events that I've attended, the majority of people are trying to do good in the world. And that is very reassuring, right? Because we see like greedy corporations and all that. And I've worked with big corporations, and inside those corporations, they're humans who are trying to do good in the world, who are like doing their best to do things right and to help people, not they're just thinking about profit. So some of those things have been like help expand my perspective, increase my knowledge, and just kind of, what's the word, like feel, yeah, feel reassured, feel excited, feel happy about the fact that we humans are trying to do it right. We mess it up because we're humans, but everybody's trying to do things right. And I think that just reestablishes hope in humanity.
It's good that you point this out, because I think so many people, especially nowadays with what's happening, I think we all know things are going downhill. In America, women lose a lot of rights. There's a lot of war happening. Maybe it's just as much as there was before, but now you just are more aware of it and you're constantly bombarded. And the guilt that you mentioned, you feel guilty for, like, I feel guilty that I can travel the world, I can still earn money, I can still have fun, while other people are in this prison and they cannot escape their country and they cannot just go, or they have to go to military, like all these kind of things. So it's nice to hear some positive news as well, that people generally want to do good things. Was there one specific thing that you remember where you're like, oh my God, I didn't expect this, and this is actually amazing?
Yeah, well, I mean, like super amazing, no, but it just changed my perspective because I had to attend an event that had to do with mining. And we all know that mining is very harmful to the environment. And as I was listening to these people who were talking about how they extract different materials and how they have to deal with different, like laws that they have to abide to, and different processes and different technologies and all that, after the first few sessions, my brain was a little bit like, ugh, because there was a lot of laws that were being talking about, not like big ideas, but laws. And that's very challenging to do with graphic recording. So after that, there was a break and I got out of the room and I saw one of the guys, who had like spoken, and I decided to just like sit next to him. I was like, hey, what are you working on? Like, can I sit? Can we talk? And he started talking to me about, what got him into this industry and what he was so passionate about it. One of the things that he said is like, what the people don't understand is like, there's some people who are trying to go all completely renewable sources, and there's some people who try to go, no, like let's not do renewable sources, blah blah blah. And the thing is, like, at this point in time, it's not healthy to do either or. Like, if we could continue with just fuel fossils, we'll destroy the world. But if we move completely to renewable sources, we don't have the capacity with the renewable sources that we have right now to satisfy the demand of things that are happening. And like, imagine it, there's going to be hospitals that may not have electricity because of this or stuff like that. So he was talking to me about how, for example, gas was one thing that used to be very destructive. Like, they will have to dig this hole, this big hole, and like carve, and there will be like resources that will escape and all that. And it was very wasteful. But now they have developed a technology that was essentially kind of like a thing that kind of like when they make, what is it called, like that camera that they put on your stomach to like see
Yeah.
your insides. So it's like a thing that just goes through the cracks and goes through the holes and all that. So they don't have to dig a hole even to find the sources of the gas, and they can just extract it from there. So it's less invasive. So I was like, I didn't know that. Nobody talks about that. But people are saying, no, gas is destructive and all that. Well, it's not as much anymore. What that showed me was essentially like the information that we got is biased. We don't know a lot unless we are in the places where people are managing the information sometimes. But then also, these people who are even working in these industries have a concern about saving our planet. And I feel like for the most part, if these people were not there doing that, then we're probably already extinguished. So I guess seeing it in that, under that light, is like, it shows that there's still kind of like a struggle. There's a push towards helping the environment. It's not as much as maybe most people would want, but it's still there, and it's helping us kind of stay a little bit behind that dangerous cliff. So that's one conversation that I remember very vividly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that we get one side of the story. Like, for example, the whole palm oil stuff. Like, don't use palm oil, don't use products with palm oil. And then someone told me that actually palm oil is one of the most efficient oils to get if you look at land. So if you have, I don't know, 10 hectares of palm oil, you produce more than if you'd have the same area and use, I don't know, olive oil or rapeseed, whatever else it is. So actually, environmentally, it's one of the best oils. The problem is not the oil, it's the deforestation. So it's things like that. When you learn that, it's like, I need to double check that fact before I publish this. But it's things like this where we think it's extremely bad. But that's also why it's good to have social media, why there's so much information out there. Or when you think of freelancing, there are so many tips now that are so accessible for everyone that before it would be so hard to find. How do you feel about giving away information, or were there any tips online that were useful for you when you started your career?
Yeah, well, when I started my career, I guess in illustration in general, I wasn't very much online, I guess. Like it was kind of the beginnings, and I think I was still at that stage in which I was more relying on finding mentors and tutors and people that I knew that had expertise in certain things. And I had a mentor that I reached out because I was curious about investing. I have never heard of it. And then the book Rich Dad Poor Dad was on the table, in my house, and I was like, oh, let's read it. So that guy helped me out to develop kind of like an idea of planning life and where to invest your efforts to get a good return, like not only to invest your money but to invest your time, your energy, your knowledge. And so I guess like online, it was it was probably after I came here to the US, like 2014, that most of my people, my friends and family, were away, that I started relying more on things online and finding information, learning things for myself, because I was not close to anybody who knew things that I needed. And at that point, it was 2014. It's kind of funny how things kind of align, because it was exactly on that time when I saw a video by Chris Do, that he was explaining how to charge for a logo, like, and the difference between value pricing and hourly pricing, and where hourly pricing was not right or not smart, I guess. I feel like it was that point and that whole context of me being in a new place with the purpose of learning complete, like just learning and getting the most out of the experience, growing professionally, like, flying out of the nest and being like, okay, there's this thing called internet, there's this thing called social media. I can use it to learn. I can use it to prompt me, to fuel me. And that I started being more geeky about learning all that sort of stuff. And I don't know, there's been so much, because, since 2015, I've been following Christo, and his path and all the things that he has taught in the future. And then I also uh, found out about Donald Miller, and he was starting with the story brand framework things. And I feel like those two kind of influences have been helping me along the path of growing as a professional. And I cannot pinpoint one single lesson that I've like specifically searched, but I feel like throughout my path and the way that I've approached life as a professional, there's one thing that has been kind of like a general trend. And this actually circles back to my mentor in Costa Rica. When the last time that we met before I took that plane and came here, we had a conversation, and he was like, I just want to, talk one last time with you. We're going to keep in touch, but, we're not going to be meeting and all that. And I want to tell you something, like, well, he asked me how I was feeling. I was geeking out, and then he said, I'm very happy for you. I'm very happy for you. You have this great opportunity, and you'll be very tempted to feel like you're going there to just learn things and get things in your own backpack, on your own utility belt. But remember this, you might be even going there. And he used this, he's a man of faith, so he used these words. You might be even going there to be the answer to somebody else's prayer. The things that you have learned here in your story, in your life, by being involved in the things that you have involved in leadership and helping youth and all that stuff, those things are unique to you. And some people out there have never known that, and they would only know it through you. So you have something to give: your perspective, your experience, your heart. So remember this: even though you're going there to learn, you can go there and leave whatever you are better than how you encounter it. And when he said that, it kind of like shocked me a little bit, but at the same time, it it reinforced something in me, which is, hey, I don't need to prove myself. I have value already. And being able to show up knowing that you have value puts you in a very good position, because not only imposter syndrome is gone, right? Or maybe lurking but not so loud, but then you have the opportunity to actually enjoy sharing what you know and being generous with what you know. That opens up so many doors that they wouldn't otherwise open if you're just there to learn and to stay in the background, in the receiving end. So every time that I go to a new place, especially in a place where I know that I'm probably the one who is the least experienced in general terms. Like I'm going to a conference in a few weeks where there's people who make millions of dollars, right? Like there's a way ahead of me in business wise. It feels a little bit intimidating. It feels like maybe I'd be a little bit inadequate to be there. But I know that I have my own value that none of them can give because they're not me. So I go there with the intention of like just giving the best of me, right? Of course, learning from everybody, but giving the best of me. And I've named this thing just kind of voluntary generosity, like feeling that you have something of value, and because you know that you have something of value, then giving it away freely is one of the best things that you could do with your life. Is not only like an action, but it's like a way of living. And I would say it's even an identity, because if you identify it as a generous person, that just spreads to every area of your life. And as a freelancer, or a small business owner or creative professional in my case, that happens to translate in good business. Because when you're generous with your knowledge, when you get on a client call and you're not looking to just close the call, but you're looking to help, and you're being generous with your time, with your questions, with your advice, you're guiding the client to the best outcome, that translates in better business, because that creates trust. When you show up online, on social media, and you give advice to other creatives, when you show your process, and you give all those things out of your pure generosity, that translate again in more trust, more people seeing, more people believing in you, more people interested in what you do, more conversations happening. Because everybody wants to be around somebody who is generous, right? Like nobody wants to be around people who are stingy and like trying to get things from you. Everybody wants to be around others who give. So yeah, that has been one thing that is like not that I learned online per se, but that has been something that online has translated well for me as well. And it's the perspective that I use when I approach social media.
I think it's a really nice lesson that your mentor or your professor gave you, because that's something that he gave you, that mindset shift, and you take it with you. Like what you mentioned with the backpack, you might go there with an empty backpack, but you already have presence inside that you can just give to anyone who you're meeting, and all of them have presence. And also what you said before, that maybe you feel inadequate to go to that conference. I mean, just the fact that you're invited to go there, it doesn't mean that, like, I mean, that proves already that you are. And I also think I actually had a discussion about the confidence stuff on the previous podcast episode, about how some freelancers are very confident, or maybe they just overplay it, and others, all of them struggle with imposter syndrome. Like everyone feels like, I'm not good enough, I should know more about this. But then all of us have something we can teach, and it's a back and forth. And I also think like the more you give, the more you get back. And it's also what you
Yeah.
mentioned, like if you wouldn't have seen Christo's real post, whatever it was, 2015, you've been following this person for almost 10 years now. Like it's actually mad. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you would not have seen that, maybe you would not, like, you'd still be stuck with hourly pricing, and yeah, not have gotten the amount of money that you've managed to get by now, over those 10 years. It's also funny that you mentioned Christo, because I'm always thinking about, how did I actually come across that person that I'm interviewing? And it was Christo. It was a while ago. I think he shared one of your sketch notes you've done on, I don't know if it was a talk or something like that. But then I really liked that idea. I've never come across sketch notes before. And then I started following you. And then I think it was like earlier this year, it's been a couple months ago, there was this Instagram live. And it was with Christo and Carlos, and they had this sales role play, and they just spontaneously invited someone from the audience to join. And you can imagine an Instagram live with Christo, how many people request to be this one person. And then I remember he said this when he was trying to pick a person to do the role play with. And he was like, oh, I actually know this guy. And you popped on. And I was like, oh, I know this guy. It's the sketch guy, you know? And then you had this role play, and it was like such a nice Saturday, like for me, it was Saturday morning activity, because it was like watching a movie. It was like the good and the bad person, the good person trying to like sell without being like salesy. And it was such a great life. Can you tell people how, or can you give tips to anyone who might want to get noticed by someone like Christo? Because in the freelance world, I guess for many creatives in general, he's such a guru. Like, I mean, I don't know, I don't like this, but like people know him. Everyone has a lot of respect for him.
Yeah.
He has a certain authority. So getting noticed and being remembered by Christo, how did this happen? How did you do it?
Yeah, that was quite an interesting experience to me too. Things started to happen, I think, because there are some things that I believe I have on my favor. It is like the kind of drawing that I do sometimes relies on things that, I mean, okay, let's start from the beginning. I knew Chris Do already has an appreciation for sketch notes, because I've seen people that he has supported before. And I also we have a friend in common that is a guy that I admired, but we have become very close friends, that he does sketch notes too. And I have heard him before on a podcast with Chris, because he used to be in the pro group too. So like we have kind of like a friend in common that just happens to be something that happened there. But my friend didn't introduce me to Chris. I didn't ask him to introduce me to Chris. It's just like one time I showed up to one of these conversations, and what I did is that I sketched note the conversation. It was actually last year, and I had just started doing my own business. I had, exited my full time job and dedicated on this like completely. And I had a mentor, a coach that I hired at the time, and she suggested that I needed to form a portfolio that was my own. And one of the best ways was to probably get podcasts or live webinars or stuff like that of people that I enjoyed their content, that I was appreciative of the things that I have learned from them, and as a way of like thank them, create a sketch note of it and then send it to them and see what happened. And if they saw it, by grace of God, and divine, stars align and all that, and they share it, that would be great. If they didn't, then that's fine. You still have your own portfolio. You have things that you can share online to prove what you do. And I decided to start joining live webinars and doing the sketch notes and share them before the webinar was finished, because if I share them after the webinar was finished, they might have get busy doing something else, they might get distracted. But while the conversation is happening, if I share it, people will be like, wait, are you doing this right now? Like, did you just do, like, did he told you, like, this was a conversation, there's no way you could have known what they were going to talk about. So they started to get the buzz. And so I did that for Chris, and he saw it and he shared it. He got a lot of, views and engagement and all that. So he messaged me. He's like, hey, great job on that. Like, it's getting a lot of traction. And I was like, thank you. I appreciate it. Like, and what I said at that point is like, I, I wanted to, I wanted to have a sort of connection with him in which he could know me personally. I didn't know if I was gonna work for him or not. Like, that was not on my radar, because for me it was like, I don't care if he pays me or not. I'll still do them for him, because all the things that I've learned from him, I feel like I actually owe him money. So, so, so it was my way of kind of paying him back. That reciprocity effect. And what it is like, hey, I would love to give it to you, like to just send you a print if that's cool, with you, if you have space in your wall. So I asked him if there was an address that I could send him to, and he said yes. So I sent him a note, a handwritten note, made a drawing of him. I sent him the print and all that. And with all that, he started to know me a little bit more as a person, and started following me and started watching my videos. So I feel like at that point, when I was in his radar, it was just a good way of kind of connecting. He did ask me eventually, like, if I'd be up for certain, for certain things, and I'll be just like, they're like, hey, I wanna help you out, like, let's do it, like, let me know when there's the new event, because I will join for sure and do a sketch note if that's, if that works out. So so yeah, I mean, part of it has been like, I know he has appreciation of sketch notes, so it worked out. If I reach out to somebody else, which I've reached out to other people who have no appreciation of sketch notes, or it's not in the radar, or it's not the thing that they kind of like, no, this situation wouldn't have happened. Like, I've done sketch notes for many, many people, and like three of them have like reached back, kind of like, this is awesome, and continued a conversation, and even like a relationship there. So, it's not like everybody will resonate necessarily. It just happens to be that way for me. But I also, you know, I really vibe with his energy, with the way that he behaves and the way that he treats people. Just his way of coaching also is something that I crave. So I feel like if I can add value to his life, then that's great. And if he allows me to be in that space, then I'm just gonna show up and take it like with gratitude. And I remember one thing, because I've been following him for so long, that he has mentioned that one of the things he that annoys him, I think he used this word, that annoys him, is people who are, he used this term, too smart for their own good. And I was like, what does he mean? And what he said is like, there's people who will ask you for advice, and when you tell them the advice, they'll be like, well, but I don't know, and like overthinking it, that don't do it. It's like, why did you ask me for my advice if you're not gonna do anything with it? So I realized, man, that makes a lot of sense. And so when we were in these conversations on LinkedIn, when he told me like, hey, do this thing, I'll go like, yes, sir, and I'll go and do it. Like, and my thing is like biased towards action. Like, I'm not overthinking. Like, he tells me to do A, and I'm just gonna do A, and then report back, this is what happens. And if it didn't work, I'm not gonna be like, oh, but you told me blah blah blah. It's like, well, he can tell me like, what else can you try? But I'm not gonna question. I'm just gonna go and do it, because I am assuming that he has so much more experience than me, that I better just go and try it. I have nothing to lose with that. And I feel like that caught his eye, that caught his attention. Like, this person not only does good work, not only is, in general terms, I'm a nice person, right? I'm not greedy, or I'm not like trying to take advantage of people or anything like that. And he also is biased towards action. He takes my advice and do it. So I think that he has realized that he can give me advice safely, because he knows I will take it, and that is good advice invested, right? So I try to just kind of approach that when I have a situation in which I want to kind of be in the what is it called, in the radar of people who have maybe more, experience, more following, or I don't know, more power maybe, than me. Then I want to make sure that the impression that I cause on them is not only correct, accurate, but also that it's a good one, that they feel that they're not going to waste their time with me, right?
Yeah.
I know their time is limited. So whatever they tell me, whatever they ask, request of me, um, I want them to know that it's going to be well invested. And so I guess that has been one of those things that has worked out, well for now. I'm looking forward to meeting him actually in a few weeks.
Oh, nice.
That's gonna be great. And I'm just so grateful that that has worked out so far.
Wow.
So
Nice. I think like what you said with the giving advice and just doing it, it's easy if it's from Christo. Like, you've seen all the results he's done for other people. It's easy to follow that. I've also had coaching, and then sometimes they give you a certain advice, and it just feels like it's not me. Like, actually, I don't know if you know, I was on the other sales call. Yeah. So the week after, I just chatted with Carlos, because he plugged, of course, his
uh,
sales, his newsletter. And then I noticed some things in the user journey, and I just asked him, do you want feedback? And he said yes. And then he was like, oh, by the way, we want to do another role play. Do you want to get on? It's like, oh my God, I'm going to be on a live with Chris. Oh my God, is this real, And
Yeah.
was nervous for a whole week. And then, yeah, I kind of ruined it because it didn't give away my rates during the live call. And it
Mm.
was because of my coach. Like, he told me, don't say the price until they have no more hesitations. Resolve all the other hesitations, because the price is usually the biggest barrier. So I just didn't say my price. And then in the end, Christo was actually like, yeah, just say the price. There's nothing wrong with saying your rate, And looking back, I know that now. But still, because I listened to advice of someone else, and like in the end, he saw the live as well, and he was like, yeah, I feel a bit bad. And it's like, I was still the one who listened to it, And then there's other
Yeah.
things where, oh, if you want to sell, just DM people. And it's like, but I don't want to DM to sell. Like, I reach out to some of the followers because, especially when they engage a lot, I'm just like, why are you interested in me, But
Yeah.
I don't want to start a conversation because I want to sell. How do you, like, is it specifically with Chris Doe like this, where you just, whatever he says, I'll do it because I trust him? Or did you ever face a situation where you listened to someone else's advice and then, yeah, maybe it didn't go so well?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, advice doesn't always work. And that's the reality of it for many reasons. Like, it could be the best advice in the world, and maybe your specific situation, or like, I don't know, something happened that day that deviated the attention of people. Like there's multiple factors. I think the idea of advice is not necessarily that it works or not. Is the fact that you're trying and testing, and that testing is giving you the experience to know what works for you. So I typically apply the advice of things that I haven't done yet, right? Like, if I have done something already, it's like, okay, I'm doing it. Like, I don't need to kind of like follow it again because I'm already trying it. But if it's something that I haven't tried yet, then my gut reaction is like, okay, let's do it and see what happens. So when Chris tells me this thing, it's like, okay, there's people who have, like Chris, that has given advice to multiple people and has seen patterns of growth in multiple people that are, in his case, creatives, like in a similar industry than me. So if he has seen what works, I don't want to spend my days and nights trying to figure out by myself how to create warm water if somebody already made it and knows how to make it. So it doesn't really make sense for me to overthink it, right? I just like, just do it. There are certain scenarios where maybe it may be hard to apply certain things, and that's where I will ask questions to be like, hey, this is my situation right now. I don't know if that would apply to me. Like, I was talking recently with, I'm very interested into getting at some point into like real estate, but like buying places to make like Airbnbs or like rentals and stuff like that. I don't have the capital right now to do it, but I'm always learning. And I got into conversations with a few people on Instagram who do these things, and they were telling me like, hey, you could do this thing. So like, what I ask is like, yeah, but like, what is the minimum that I should have saved so that this makes sense? So they said like, yeah, you'll need like at least like $10,000, or talk me back when you have $10,000 ready to apply. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's great, because if I just go right now, it would be suicide. Probably it would be too risky, and I don't want to put my family in that sort of a risk right now. So that sort of thing is like, okay, if I feel like there's some piece missing and that might not work out because I don't have certain thing, I will ask. And then if they tell me just like try it out, okay, I'll try it out. Of course, it's not like if Chris told me, hey, you should go and jump out a bridge, it's like, well, no, because that doesn't make sense. Right? So
Please don't.
it's not like blind faith necessarily, but I also, from the things that I've learned from following Chris for so long and hearing his conversations and being in contact with people who know him, I've realized that he's not gonna advise me anything that is gonna put me into harm, because when he gives advice, it's because he cares. So with that assumption, I feel safe about taking advice, right? Is not just taking advice from any stranger just because they're pros or whatever. Like, I've listened to a lot of people out there, but Chris Doe and Donald Miller are the ones that I have a more rounded understanding of, because I followed their paths for so long. And I have seen what they talk about, not only in relationship to their business, but also personally, how they manage their families, their mindset, their mental health and all that. So I feel more confident about taking advice from them. I haven't taken advice from Donald Miller, but maybe one day.
Yet, yeah.
Uh, yeah, yeah, that's the word. Yes, but yeah.
What you said before about feeling like it's the same vibe, the same energy, I think that's so important, especially when you find a mentor or hire a coach, because sometimes people just do things differently. Or nowadays, everyone's a coach. Like I'm still, imposter, just that word is like, I feel so uncomfortable with it. But in a way, I am a coach as well, and it's this. I had it before where someone just tells me to do something and I'm like, it's just not me. It feels icky. It feels wrong. It's not that it's out of my comfort zone. Like I'm so used to doing things in my comfort zone nowadays. Like I'm opening a co-living. I've never run a hotel before, and it's like, I'm used to doing things out of my comfort zone. That's not the problem. It's more like if it doesn't feel like me or it doesn't feel right.
Mm.
Any freelancer who's listening who might want to find a mentor or hire a coach, what advice would you give them for when they choose someone?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first one has to do with like a track record of doing things that are similar to you or being in an industry that is similar to you. That's the first one that is probably the easiest to verify. Like, you know, put the topic of like the Airbnb, for example. Like if there's somebody who is selling a course or a cohort or coaching to like how to create Airbnbs, and I cannot find where their business is and how it's working, like that's just a red flag there. And they might have expertise in another industry that is similar, but not necessarily Airbnb. So I'll still be kind of like, that's the first thing. I think the second one is like anytime that you buy a service, you are not only buying the service, but I'm gonna put this into quotes because it sounds kind of awful, but you're kind of like buying the person, right? Like you're entering a relationship with somebody, and every relationship, like not every relationship has the same vibe, using the same word, right? And it's the same thing that you would do if you go to a doctor and the doctor doesn't listen to you and just prescribes you with anything. It's like, I'm not gonna keep going with that doctor. Like, I don't care, they're doctors and they're like super famous and have all their certificates. Like, they just didn't listen to me. We don't vibe, and I'm not gonna feel safe with them. So with somebody that you're gonna pay to help you with your business, if you're not gonna feel safe to open up and talk about your business, then it's not gonna work. You're gonna waste your money. So you always have that first consultation in which you wanna check the vibe, too, and see if you resonate with the person. And I think that after that, it's just kind of seeing where it takes, like, how good they are with giving the advice. Because one thing is they have done it, and that's great. They have the track record. The second thing is they are in the same vibe with you and the same frequency, and you like them. That is great. And the third one is how good they are at teaching or coaching, which is a whole different skill. I've seen a lot of people who are good at doing the thing. They're not so good at advising others to do it or listening to others to kind of detect or diagnose what they should do. So if you take into account those three things and the three of them check, I think you have a solid way to take a decision and be like, yeah, I'm gonna go towards this person. I I've been I'm grateful, and I've been lucky, I guess, that I haven't had to had so many. I've had to interview so many people. Like typically, the people that I get in the first place tend to be good, and so I don't know. Maybe that's just, maybe I've been lazy about it and I've missed out because I haven't found better people. But so far, it has worked out for me. Sometimes it happens, but sometimes you might have to go and do a little bit more of research. I guess the vibe check, you can actually see it if they're like they're reactive online. If they have, for example, you have as a podcast, they can hear your tone. They can hear how you behave. If they see it in video, they can also see, your gestures and all your body language and all that, and that can give you a check of like, am I liking this person? Am I liking their vibe? Are they too hyper and they're gonna get me stressed out? Are they too calm and I'm gonna get bored and impatient with them? Like, or are they just, measured and all that? Like, all those things affect your decision. So seeing people on YouTube or on social media or their podcasts and all that, that can give you a good idea
Yeah,
to start with.
I actually find it interesting that you called yourself lazy for not doing more research on coaches, because I feel like it could also be efficient. I actually talked with someone recently about decision making, and I'm this kind of person that I look at all the options. And even if I think, okay, 90% this one is the right one, I will go with this, then maybe someone just says something like, gosh, I didn't consider this. And then I review everything. And then in the end, I'm not sure. And then I just do it by myself. And it's like, it would have been so much easier to, like, all these kind of things. And it's interesting how we talk to ourselves, because someone could just say it's efficient, you're just good at decision making, and it's like, okay, this person feels right. And also, there is no perfect, so good enough is good.
Mm-hmm.
But have you had any like mindset shifts or things where, when you noticed that since you've had that shift, that you did something different? Like, for example, you would not call yourself lazy now because actually it's efficient, for example. Were there any epiphanies that you've had based on what a coach has told you, or a friend, or some learnings, when someone gave you a present from their backpack?
Nice. I like that metaphor of the present from their backpack. Let's see. Well, definitely the first one would be that one that I shared with my mentor, telling me like, and again, I don't want this to sound like I'm inflating myself, but I do see myself with value, right? Like, I don't take that for granted. I'm willing to take space and to share what I think because I think it's value, and that comes from that. I think another one has been just, and I cannot pinpoint it to somebody specifically, but has been this whole idea of sales conversation is just trying to help other people, right? It's not about convincing anybody. Like, when I found out that you don't have to convince, it's like, thank goodness, because I've never been very good at convincing people, and I know now why. Because people don't want to be convinced.
Yeah.
People want to know what they know, and they want to feel reaffirmed in what they know. And the most open people just want to know their options and just want to know, what other things are out there. But they don't like, nobody likes somebody else to tell you how you should think, right? So in a sales conversation, just having that understanding of like, I'm trying to discover what these people think, what these people believe, what is important for them, and then try to point out, okay, if this is important, what do I have to give that can match that? And if I don't have it, I'm not going to offer it, right? Like, I don't have the thing that can solve your problem. Like, if you have a headache and I draw, like, I don't know how's that gonna solve that.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna send you to the pharmacy, right? But if you have problem with communication and I draw, oh, look at that, I can help you there. This is how I can help you. I think that has been very relieving for me. And then, well, I frequently also with sales, because I've been geeking out about sales, because it's one of the things that I needed more practice with,
I
because
actually think
I
you did a
work.
great job on that sales call. Like,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun, but like, sales is the thing that I need more practice in. Just because I've had conversations with people, but I used to just represent another company as an artist, but I was not the person who did the sales for that company. So I was just the artist. So I could talk about the value of what I do, but I wasn't as good as like, okay, when we gotta close the deal, like, how does this work? So, since going freelance, I'll be just like narrowing my focus into that. And it's been a lot of fun. And one of the things that I learned too is like, there's people who have scripts, and I've heard people that are trained, like, you have half an hour, this is the points that you need to cover, these are the things that you need to do, and it's more like a pitch, right? And that makes me very nervous and gives me anxiety of all sorts, because again, I feel like it's convincing mode. And the coach that I have now, he says like, just need to know three things, like, one of them is like, what's going to happen here? And you ask, how can I be of value? So that you let them talk about what's the value that they see in your work, find out what their goals are, and then match it, talk about the price in ranges, and then see what they think about it, and then help them make a decision. But the main thing is like you want to do a conversation that ends on a yes or a no. Maybe doesn't exist. It's a yes or a no. That's the hardest part that I'm still trying to figure out, because there's people who are like, yeah, my boss is the one who's gonna take the decisions. Like, okay. So but just having the conversation of like how to help somebody else with your services has been a good approach for sales. And one thing that I teach my son, I mean, he's 5 years old, but I try to tell him this and drill it into his brain as much as possible. And one day he wanted to buy something, and I was like, "Where are your savings? Like, you have some money." It's like, "Oh, I left it at home." It's like, "Oh, well, how can you make more money?" It's like, "I don't know." So I tell him all the time, like, if you want to make money, learn to be helpful. So learn to figure out where people have a need, where they're struggling with something, and you can start, like, not that we're gonna pay him for everything, but you can start by practicing, like, oh, did Mama just said that she's thirsty? She has a problem there. How can you be helpful, right? Oh, did you hear Papa saying that he's tired and stressed out? you know he has a problem there. How can you be helpful, right? So having that mentality of like, how can I be helpful to other people, will help you eventually to be better at your business, because business in general is just essentially solving somebody else's problem for money. That has been a good kind of mindset that I've taken.
It's so interesting what people are trying to pass on to their children, because maybe it was a certain learning for you, this whole sales cringiness. Okay, how can I make it easier for someone? I'm just going to teach them to be helpful so it will be natural to them. No matter if it's going to be for business purposes or general in life, it's always good to have a person that is helpful, and it will also be beneficial for them, because I genuinely feel whatever you give, you're going to get back. So if he's helpful to others, people will also help him in return. So it's a good thing to raise him with that. And
Yeah.
I talked to my sister about this, and I'm staying at her place at the moment, and how our dad raised us around money, because we're both quite, I mean, we all had our lessons. We learned things the hard way, but we're independent. No matter if we have a relationship or not, we don't need a partner. We don't need someone else to be able to do the things we want. And we got pocket money. And my boyfriend, he's in Sri Lanka, very, 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 very different culture. And his nephew went on a trip, 10 years old, and I gave him a bit of pocket money just to teach him how to use money, because he's never had his own money. He's never had a wallet. It's like, here's your money. You can do whatever you want with it. You can save it. You can buy some sweets. You can buy a present for someone else. You can buy a souvenir for your mom. Whatever you want to do with it, do. And because he didn't have a wallet, he gave it to his grandmother. And then they came back from the trip, and I'm like, so what did you do with your pocket money? Oh, it's with grandma. He didn't do anything.
uh,
He didn't do anything. And it's interesting how, like, certain things that we get from our parents, and it's such a gift, and we don't realize that. Because my sister and I got pocket money, even if it's like 50 cents per week, we learned to save up. I was saving up for mangas, so it's like, okay, I need 5 weeks and then I can buy a manga. The other thing you mentioned was following the sales script. And I also noticed at the beginning of the podcast, I tried to stick to my questions, to stick to a script, so that if the conversation goes a certain way, I still have the question to ask. Whereas now, maybe it's also because I've done a couple of podcasts, but now I just try to pull something out of what someone said. And if it's similar to a topic that we talked before, or that's relevant for freelancing, I like to dig a bit deeper. But then also I'm like, okay, how do I get back to the freelance topic? Or so it's all practice, but I enjoy the conversations way more, not having to stick to a script.
yeah, I've felt the same way in just general conversations, especially when there's a group. Like, it's maybe easier if it's just like conversation between two people, but if there's a group and somebody starts talking about something, and it's like, oh, that reminds me of something, I want to share it, but I'm gonna wait until they finish. But they continue and then change the idea, and then continue and then change the idea, and then somebody else jumps in. It's like, well, that's that. I didn't share what I was gonna share, but that's fine. I'm still present. And old me would be like, no, but I need to share this, but I need to share this, and I remember at some point, like, being like, do I need to, like, do I need to share everything, like, at all the point, or is it just important two, that I just listen to others and then let people just explain and let the conversation go. It's an organic thing, right? You just let it grow. It's like a vine, you know. You
Yeah.
can kind of guide it, but it will do its own thing. So yeah.
I mean, that's why we have 2 ears and one mouth, so we listen more than we speak. That's what they
Yeah.
say. And it's also, a lot of people just don't feel heard. So if you can give someone that feeling that you're actively listening, you're not just listening to be able to speak over them, but you genuinely hear them, not just the words that
Yeah.
come out, but you make the connection. It's just such a nice conversation, and the feeling people leave with just because they feel heard, like what you said before with the doctor, they're just not listening. It makes a big difference.
Yeah. It does.
There are 3 questions I ask all my podcast guests. And one of them is, would you ever go back to a permanent job?
I don't think so. And I have nothing really against full-time jobs. It's just I feel like the same way that some people like sushi and some people don't, I feel like full-time jobs are not my thing, especially because I have a family, and having to commute or dedicate a specific amount of time and not have flexibility doesn't really work for me. Like on Sunday, I got food poisoning. And on Monday, if I had a full-time job, I would have to take PTO, that could have used on vacation or something like that. But I didn't have like, I just stay at home, right? Like I just napped. so so that's the sort of things that I want to have flexibility for, especially as my son grows and we start planning like more trips and stuff like that. Like I want to be able to have that flexibility.
Nice.
So yeah, long answer, but yeah.
Okay, 2 more. If you could go back in time to the person that, let's say you finished your illustration degree and
Mhm.
you then realized, oh, actually, it doesn't really pay the bills. I'm not an artist, where you didn't know exactly if this is going to pay your bills. What would you today tell your past self?
The first thing that comes to mind is just get out of the country, go study abroad. And there's nothing wrong with Costa Rica. It's a nice country, actually good education and very affordable compared to the United States. Uh, but because I grew up there, I was in a bubble in a market that was too small, and I feel like I was too focused on other stuff and not so much on my professional development, that I felt like I didn't feel that need of leaving the country until I had finished my undergrad and was like, okay, so what now? And I mean, I actually had an opportunity of going out of the country when I was in my senior year of high school. I applied to a college that is kind of like you do senior year and a few years of college altogether, and it was in Canada. Um, and I went from like the hundreds of people who apply all the way to interviews, like the 14 people. They would select three, and
Congrats.
yeah, that was great. But then I didn't get it, so I stayed in Costa Rica. So that could have been like my story would have been so different, of course. But I feel like for people who are especially in small countries, I know I know this may sound very privileged to many people because it's not that easy, right? Especially coming to the United States where education is expensive. I didn't take any loans, and I was fortunate that my mom got a good job that could cover a lot of it, and I got all the scholarships I could. I mean, there was hustle, there was prayer, and there was all the in between, and an opportunity, and just like great connections that can help out. But like just connections, I call it like just friends that introduce me to things, that introduce me to opportunities. But I feel like if you have the possibility to get out of your country and go to another country or go to Europe, like even, and study there, just the fact that you're surrounded by other people will expand your world so much. And it doesn't matter what you study, just like being in a different environment will break your bubble and open opportunities. So I will tell myself that, like, just get out, do the thing. You can do it. It's gonna be great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. It's the more different groups of people that are outside your bubble that you expose yourself to, your bubble automatically gets bigger and you just grow with it. So that's a really good tip. And last
Yeah.
question. Imagine yourself 5 years from now. you will have met Christo by now. Your son will be 10.
Dang.
You will probably have spoken at a conference, hopefully.
Yeah.
What do you think your future self would tell you today?
I honestly think my future self would just tell me, "Hey, just keep at it. Like, don't quit. You know, just keep going. Do your best, and remember what's important." I think that's it. I hope my future self will say, climate change is already solved, and politics is not an issue anymore, and AI just decided to go to another planet and leave us alone. I hope, but I feel like in myself, he'll just tell, like my future self would just tell me, "Hey, just keep at it. It's all worth it."
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. If anyone of the listeners want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
To hire me as a graphic recorder, you have an event, you happen to know people who organize conferences or who has like internal meetings, people who are doing strategy in big corporations and stuff like that. That's my stuff. And my website is www.alejoporrasart. That's ALEJOPORRASART.com. And they can find all the information there. I'm also on Instagram, on LinkedIn. I believe there's probably links in this podcast where you can access directly to that. So you can text me there, or you can send me an email at alejoporrasart, alejoporrasart @gmail.com, and I'll give you more information there to book a call. Yeah, my website, way to connect as a friend, as a fellow creative on Instagram, as a professional. Like if you're looking for, hire me or collaborating or anything on LinkedIn, I say that Instagram is my neighborhood. LinkedIn is downtown where I go to work. So I treat those in very specific ways. DM me all you want on Instagram. On LinkedIn, just follow me, because if I don't know you, I will not accept your invitation. So that's just how it is. But yeah, happy to meet people. And if anybody has any questions about my journey, catch up on Instagram and let's chat.
Nice. Thank you so much. And I'll leave all of the links in the description. And yeah, enjoy meeting Chris. And have a good
Thank
day.
you. Yeah, you too.
It was so interesting listening to Alejo's freelance journey, and I'm so excited for him that he can meet Christo in real life. I'm adding all the links about Alejo in the description of his podcast. Definitely give him a follow on Instagram. You'll learn a lot through his sketch notes. I really hope that after listening to this episode, as cheesy as it may sound, you'll realize that all of us have a little backpack full of gifts that we can share with anyone we meet. And sometimes we're having the pleasure of someone sharing a gift with us, like today, Alejo sharing his story with us. If you feel like the Freelance Blueprint has been in any form a gift for you from my little backpack, I'd love for you to leave a review and hit the follow button, and thank you so much for listening to this episode. You can also support the Freelance Blueprint by sharing it with your friends. That's all from me, and I can't wait to have you join again next week. Bye!